Let me ask you something direct. You wake up every morning, you work, you try, you push, and yet the numbers don't move. The pressure doesn't lift. The breakthrough you've been expecting keeps arriving late, or not at all. You've been told it's about effort. You've been told it's about mindset. You've been told to think bigger, work harder, visualize more, repeat affirmations in the mirror. I'm telling you right now, that's not the problem. The problem is what happens in the first 60 minutes after you open your eyes. And most people are doing it completely wrong, not because they're lazy, not because they lack faith, but because they've never been shown what those first 60 minutes actually do at a spiritual level. There are 3 specific errors that happen inside that window, 3 behaviors that look harmless, that feel normal, even responsible, but according to ancient wisdom, they close the channel of provision before your day even begins. The first error is behavioral. It's something you probably do within the first 2 minutes of waking. The second error is verbal, and when I tell you what it is, you're going to recognize it immediately, because you do it, and the people around you do it, and nobody has ever told you it carries a cost. But the third error, and the third one, is what I need you to stay for, because the third error doesn't just block your provision for today, it conditions your spiritual channel to reject provision even when it arrives. It's the reason people apply the first 2 corrections and still don't see results. The third error is what makes everything else permanent or temporary. Stay with me. All 3 are coming, and by the time you leave this video, you're going to know exactly what to do tomorrow morning. And your tomorrow morning is going to be different from every morning that came before it. Before we go further, if this channel has been bringing you teaching that actually reaches you, not just entertains you but reaches you, this is the moment to subscribe. Hit that button now, because what I'm about to deliver is not the kind of teaching that comes back around when you miss it. This is the kind that changes the morning, that changes the year. Subscribe and let's continue. Now, let me tell you something I witnessed in my own family that I've never forgotten. My uncle, a man who worked with his hands every day of his life, once told me something that stayed with me for decades. He said, "Yosef, I used to wonder why some men prosper and others strain. I finally understood. It's not the work they do in the afternoon. It's the gate they open or close in the morning. At the time I was young, I heard it as poetry. Later, I understood it as law. There is a teaching as old as the Torah itself. Every morning, before you have said a single word, before you have made a single decision, the channel of provision is in a state of openness. The spiritual inheritance that was decreed for you, not earned by you, not deserved by you, but decreed for you, is flowing. It is available. It is moving in your direction. And then you do one of 3 things, and the channel closes. You don't feel it close. That's the cruelty of it. You feel perfectly normal. You go about your day, you work, you strive, you believe in, and you wonder why the ceiling never lifts. It's because you close the ceiling yourself in the first 60 minutes, before breakfast. This is not a motivational framework. This is not positive psychology dressed in spiritual language. This is a law that has been observed, recorded, and transmitted through generations of people who understood that the physical and the spiritual are not separate systems. They are one system, and you are operating inside it whether you know the rules or not. Here is the weight of that truth. Not knowing the rules does not protect you from the consequences of breaking them. Let that sit. You have been working under a law you didn't know existed, and every morning, without realizing it, you have been paying a price for violations you never intended to commit. That changes today, right now, in this video. I want you to understand something about the nature of provision before we go into the 3 errors. Because if you don't understand this foundation, the errors won't make sense, and more importantly, you won't feel the urgency to correct them. The provision that is available to you is not something you have to generate. It is not something you have to attract through enough positive thinking or enough vision boards or enough hustle. It was decreed. In the same way that a parent sets aside an inheritance for a child before the child is born. The provision is real, it is set, it is assigned. But there is a condition. There is always a condition. The inheritance is available only when the door is open. The 3 morning errors close the door. And here is what makes this so urgent, so pressing, so important that I need you to hear this with your full attention. Every morning you close the door is a morning's worth of provision that does not simply wait for you. It dissipates. You do not get it back. The morning you wasted last Tuesday by committing these errors, that provision is gone, not stored, gone. This is why the cost is not just inconvenience. This is why the cost is not just a slow start. The cost is irreversible loss, repeated every single morning, accumulated across years. Do you understand what that means for you? Think about 5 years ago. Think about every morning in between. If you have been committing these errors, and you have been, I am almost certain, because almost everyone has until they learn this, then you have been bleeding provision every single morning for years. That is not meant to discourage you. That is meant to create the urgency that causes you to act tomorrow, not next week, tomorrow. The good news, and there is real good news here, is that the channel does not require you to repair the past. The channel only requires you to open it tomorrow morning. One corrected morning opens what years of misdirected mornings closed. That is the mercy inside this law. The door is not sealed shut, it is closed, and it can be opened. The 3 errors, that's what opens it. Identifying them, understanding them, and replacing them with specific behaviors that take less than 20 minutes total and cost you nothing but discipline. Discipline, not money, not talent, not special access or ancient secrets available only to a few. Discipline, repeatable, daily, available to every person watching this right now. Now, one more thing before the first error. If you are carrying something heavy right now, a financial situation that is not just challenging but painful, a provision that has felt blocked for longer than you can explain, a weight that shows up every morning before your feet hit the floor, I want you to know that I see that, and I want you to know that what you're about to hear is not just information, it is a way forward. You didn't stumble onto this video by accident. People who need this teaching find it. That's not coincidence. That's the same law of provision working in a different direction. So stay, all 3 errors, in order. The third one, remember, is the most important. And the third one will not make complete sense until you have the first 2. Let's go. The first error. Every morning within the first 90 seconds of waking, most people reach for their phone. I know you know this. I know you've heard this before. And I know you've heard it framed as a productivity issue, a dopamine issue, a distraction issue. You've nodded and agreed and then done it again the next morning. So I'm not going to tell you it's a productivity issue. I'm going to tell you what it actually is. According to the teaching I received, and that has been confirmed to me across years of watching it play out in real families, real businesses, real lives, the first moments of waking are a threshold, not a metaphor, a threshold. The consciousness that returns to full awareness in those first moments is in a state of openness that it will not return to again until the next morning. What enters that threshold first shapes the spiritual tone of the entire day. When you grab your phone, what enters the threshold? News, conflict, notifications, requests, other people's emergencies, other people's agendas, other people's noise. You have just handed the opening of your spiritual channel to someone else's content, and it closes, immediately, not dramatically. It just closes. The tone is set, the frequency is fixed, and from that moment forward, your spirit is operating in reaction mode, not reception mode. Reaction mode means you are responding to the world. Reception mode means the provision can reach you. You cannot receive what you are too busy reacting to receive. Here is the practice. It is simple. It costs you nothing but attention. When you wake up tomorrow, before the phone, before the news, before anything, sit in silence for 2 full minutes. Not meditation in the complicated sense, not a structured practice, just silence. Eyes open or closed. Just 2 minutes where you let the threshold stay open without filling it with noise. 2 minutes. That is the first correction. I watched a man in my community, I will call him Daniel, who had been building his business for 6 years with almost nothing to show for it. A good man, a hard worker, a man who prayed and believed and still found himself unable to close deals, unable to hold on to money when it came, unable to understand why his effort produced so little. He began the 2-minute silence practice. Only that. Nothing else changed. Within 21 days, he closed the largest contract of his 6 years in business. I am not telling you the silence caused the contract. I am telling you the silence opened the channel through which the contract arrived. The opportunity had been there. He had not been in a state to receive it. The phone was closing his channel before his day began. That is the first error. It is the simplest. It is the most fixable. and the correction is immediately available to you tomorrow morning. But here is what I need you to understand as we move to the second error. The first error closes the channel temporarily. It resets after 24 hours. The second error is more dangerous because the second error does not close the channel temporarily. It actively creates the condition you are trying to escape. Let me say that again. The second error does not just block provision, it generates scarcity with your own voice. The second error is complaining, not dramatic complaining, not theatrical suffering. I am talking about the everyday, normalized, almost invisible language of lack that most people use before 9 a.m. without registering what they are doing. I can't catch a break. Nothing ever works out for me. I'm so behind. This week is already a disaster. I don't know how I'm going to make this work. These are not just vents. These are not just stress releases. According to the wisdom I've spent my life studying, words spoken in the morning, in that same threshold of openness I described, carry a creative weight that words spoken at other times of day do not carry. You are not describing your reality. You are decreeing your reality, and the decree goes into effect. I know this is confronting. I know you want to say, but it's just an expression, and I know you want to argue that you have a right to process your stress out loud. I am not removing your right. I am telling you the cost of the exercise of that right. Every morning you speak words of lack over your life. You are planting that seed in your own soil, and it grows, not because the universe is punishing you, because that is how creation works. The mouth speaks, and the spiritual reality begins to conform. You have been confessing your deficit every morning, and then wondering why the deficit persists. Here is the practice for the second error. It is not about becoming artificially cheerful. It is not about lying to yourself or denying difficulty. It is about a specific discipline of language. From the moment you wake up until you have been awake for 1 full hour, you do not speak any word that describes a lack, a limit, or a complaint. Not to yourself, not to your spouse, not on the phone, not in your head. If something difficult needs to be addressed, address it after the first hour, after the threshold has been set. In that first hour, you speak only what you want to see. Today, I will find a way. Provision is moving toward me. I am open to what is coming, not performance. Discipline. I practiced this myself for 30 days when I was in a season of financial pressure so severe that I was waking up in the middle of the night with my chest tight. Every morning, I wanted to speak the fear. Every morning I chose not to. I disciplined my mouth before I disciplined anything else. By the end of those 30 days, the pressure had not entirely lifted, but something had shifted at the level of what I was able to perceive as opportunity. Doors that had been in front of me, that I had been too locked in reaction mode to see, became visible. The complaint was not just emotional release, it was a lens that was distorting my ability to perceive what was actually available. Remove the lens, and your perception of provision changes. Now, before we go to the third error, and remember, the third error is what makes the first two permanent or temporary, I need to stop here for a moment and ask you something directly. Is there someone in your life right now who needs this kind of teaching? Someone who is working hard and seeing little result? Someone who is faithful but feels like provision is blocked? If this channel is serving you, share it with that person today, not tomorrow, today. And if you are watching right now carrying a specific burden, a financial situation, a provision that has not arrived, a weight you've been carrying longer than feels bearable, leave your name in the comments below. Just your name. I read the comments. I pray over the names I find there. You are not anonymous here. You are seen. Subscribe if you haven't yet. And let's go to the third error, because without this one, everything you've just heard has a ceiling. The third error. This is the one that explains everything. This is the one that the people who apply the first two corrections and still see no results are committing. This is the root. The third error is practicing what I call protective worry. Not worry in general, protective worry specifically. Let me explain what that is because most people do not recognize it. Protective worry is the mental habit of spending the first hour of your morning pre-solving problems that have not happened yet, running through worst-case scenarios, calculating deficits, rehearsing difficult conversations, building mental contingency plans for catastrophes that exist only in your imagination. You do this Because some part of you believes that if you worry about it first, you will be prepared for it. You believe the worry is protective. You believe the vigilance is responsible. The ancient wisdom says something very different. It says that the worry is not protective. It is generative. Whatever you give your full mental and emotional attention to in the morning, you are actively calling forward. You are not preparing for scarcity. You are summoning it. And here is the part that makes this error more devastating than the first two combined. The worry closes not just the channel of today's provision. It closes your capacity to act on provision when it arrives. Let me show you what I mean. I know a woman, I'll call her Ruth, who ran a small catering business out of her home. Talented, faithful, hard-working, and completely stuck for 3 years. Every morning before her children were awake, she was at the kitchen table running numbers, not planning, running worst cases. What if the refrigerator breaks? What if a client cancels? What if this month is like last month? 2 hours of pre-dawn worry every single morning. During those 3 years, multiple opportunities came to her. I know this because I know the people who tried to bring opportunities to her. But every time an opportunity arrived, she found a reason it wouldn't work. Not because it wasn't a real opportunity, because her mind had been so conditioned by morning worry that it had lost the ability to perceive expansion. It could only see threat. The worry wasn't protecting her from failure. The worry was making her incapable of success. She changed one thing. The first 60 minutes of her morning, she did not allow herself to run any negative financial scenario. She sat with the silence of the first error. She disciplined her speech per the second error, and for the first full hour she simply refused to enter the worry loop. Within 45 days, she landed 3 new clients, not because the clients appeared from nowhere, because she had stopped generating the internal condition that was making her invisible to them. This is the third error, and this is why it is the most important, because you can correct the phone habit, you can discipline your language, but if you spend your first hour in protective worry, rehearsing failure, calculating worst cases, pre-living scarcity, you have negated everything else. Let me bring this together now, because I want you to leave this video with something clear and executable, not inspired and vague, clear and executable. 3 errors, 3 corrections, each one available to you tomorrow morning. The first error, the phone in the first 90 seconds. The correction, 2 minutes of silence before anything enters the threshold. The second error, language of lack in the first hour. The correction, a strict discipline of the mouth from the moment you wake until 60 minutes have passed. No complaints, no words of deficit, no rehearsal of scarcity. The third error, protective worry in the first hour. The correction, a conscious refusal to run worst-case mental scenarios before the channel is fully open. This is not denial. This is discipline. You can address your concerns, but you address them after the first hour, not inside it. Now I want to speak to something important before I tell you exactly how to implement this. There is a version of this teaching that sounds simple and then breaks down on contact with real life. I want to be honest with you about that. The morning you implement this for the first time, it will feel awkward. The silence will feel like lost time. The speech discipline will feel like suppression. The refusal to worry will feel irresponsible. That feeling is the evidence that the law is real, because your instincts have been trained by years of operating the wrong way. Discomfort is the sensation of correction, not failure, correction. On the second morning, it will feel slightly less foreign. By the 7th morning, something will shift, not dramatically, but you will notice that your days feel different. Not easier, different, like the texture has changed, like there is a quality of space in your thinking that wasn't there before. By the 30th morning, you will not want to go back. Not because it became effortless, because you will have seen enough to know that the law is real. But here is the cost I need to name plainly, because without the cost, this teaching is incomplete. The cost of this practice is the surrender of a habit that feels normal. The phone in the first minutes feels like connection. The complaint in the first hour feels like honesty. The worry in the first hour feels like responsibility. You will have to surrender the feeling that you are doing the right thing and replace it with the knowledge that you are doing the right thing. That is a harder trade than it sounds. Giving up something that feels wrong is easy. Giving up something that feels responsible, productive, and emotionally necessary, that is the real discipline, and that is the discipline that most people are not willing to make. And that is exactly why most people's provision stays exactly where it is. You are not most people. You are watching this until the end. You are still here, that matters. I want to ask you something now before the final blessing. Look at your current morning honestly. Not harshly, honestly. Of the three errors, which one is the most deeply rooted in you? For most people, it is the third one, the worry. Because the worry disguises itself as diligence. It wears the mask of responsibility, and it has been operating inside your threshold every morning for years. That is the one I want you to focus on first. Not because the first two don't matter as they do, but because correcting the third one without correcting the first two is still possible. Correcting the first two without correcting the third one is almost useless. Fix the root first, then the rest becomes sustainable. Here is what the next 7 days look like. Tomorrow morning, before anything else, you sit in 2 minutes of silence. Your phone stays face down. You do not check notifications. You do not open news. You do not check messages. 2 minutes. Just the E. Threshold open. Then, for the next full hour, you police your language. Not dramatically, quietly. If a word of lack starts to form, you stop it. You replace it with a word of what you want to see. I am moving toward provision. Today I am open. You don't need a script. You need a discipline. And for that same first hour, you do not run the worry loop. Not the finances, not the business problem, not the conversation you're dreading. Those things exist. You are not pretending they don't. But they wait until the channel is set. They wait until the first hour has passed and the threshold has been opened properly. 7 days of this. I'm not asking you to believe it will work before you try it. I'm asking you to try it with enough consistency to let the law prove itself. 7 mornings, 14 mornings, 30 mornings, and then come back, comment. Tell me what happened on day 7. Tell me what happened on day 30. Because the testimony is not just for your benefit. The testimony is for the person watching this video 3 months from now who is standing exactly where you are standing today, and they need to know that the law is real. Your story is part of someone else's breakthrough. That is also a law. Now, here is something I want to address directly. Some of you watching this are not just carrying a financial weight. Some of you are carrying a deep, specific spiritual burden around provision that goes beyond habit, something that feels generational, something that feels like a pattern that has run in your family longer than you've been alive, a ceiling that your parents hit and their parents hit, and now you are hitting, and you have been wondering if it is simply your portion to struggle. It is not your portion to struggle. Struggle is not your inheritance. Let me say that clearly. Struggle is not your inheritance. But I also want to be honest with you. Patterns like that require more than a morning discipline. They require specific, targeted prayer, not general hope, specific, intentional, named intercession. If you are carrying that kind of weight, if what I just described sounds like your life, not just your morning, leave your name in the comments below. Just your name. I go through those comments. I pray over those names specifically. You are not sending a note into a void. You are sending it to someone who will take it seriously. And if this teaching has brought you something real, not just entertainment, but something that reached you, subscribe to this channel right now if you haven't yet, because what we are building here is not a content library. It is a community of people who are taking spiritual law seriously and applying it to their actual lives. People who are tired of inspiration without transformation. That is who this channel is for. If that is who you are, you belong here. Now let me close with this. There is a moment that happens on the morning when everything changes. I have watched it happen in my own life. I have watched it happen in the lives of people I have walked with through seasons of severe scarcity. It is not a dramatic moment. It does not announce itself. It looks exactly like the previous morning. Except that this morning you opened the channel. You sat in the silence, you disciplined the language, you refused the worry loop, and something entered that could not have entered before. You may not feel it that morning. You may not see the result that day or that week, but something moved. Something was received that would have been blocked before. That morning is available to you. Tomorrow morning, specifically, is available to you. Not someday. Tomorrow. The provision that has been assigned to you, that was decreed before you were born, that has been waiting on the other side of these 3 errors, is not impatient with you. It is not withholding from you out of punishment. It is simply waiting for the door to open. Open the door tomorrow morning. 2 minutes of silence, an hour of disciplined language, an hour without the worry loop. That is the practice, that is the law, that is the door. And one last thing. Next week, I'm going to show you what happens at day 30 for the people who commit to this fully. Not at day 7 and at day 30, because the shift that happens between day 7 and day 30 is not linear. It is exponential. And I want to show you why and how to position yourself to receive the full weight of what day 30 brings. That video is coming. Stay close. Shalom, my friend. Until next time.